Welcome to Business Mastery with Dawn Kennedy, your quick under 45-minute dose of expert insights and strategies to make a positive impact on your business and life. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about what you do when you're working too many hours, but there's a little twist. We're going to be talking a lot about the licensed professionals who are in highly regulated industries who may not be able to just hire somebody and train them into a leadership role. So I brought Ruth on. She can give you her background and tell you why she's the perfect person to discuss this topic, but it will still be relevant for a lot of service-based businesses. So Ruth, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, this is great, Dawn. Thank you for having me, and I'm very excited to speak with your audience.
I am excited.
A little bit about my origin story, so to speak. So I am a dentist, had my own practice, started from scratch. Things were going just great. We had 2 little boys. I have a family. 2 little boys and I was practicing full time, so 5 days a week in my office. And then our daughter was born. She had very traumatic birth. And when she was in intensive care for like almost 6 weeks, when she came home, she had to see 8 different doctors every week. It was crazy. And my husband has a full-time career. So it was like, okay, I went back to my team in my practice and I said, we have to scrunch this down. I said, I have 2.5 days tops that you can have. We have to cram everything we do into 2.5 days. And we did it. We changed our entire business model. We changed everything from top to bottom. And I want people to hear that it was my team and I that came up with this process for how to genuinely, with care and thought, work fewer hours for the owner, myself. And it worked. It took us almost a year to get back up to the revenue load that we were doing previously. And then we grew it from there. And we never went back to the 5 days a week. Once you get a great business model where you have the right people in the right place, everyone's going in the same direction, the business part of my practice pretty much ran itself. All I had to do was show up and be a dentist, which was what I wanted to do. Not all owners want to deliver, their services. There are other owners want to be the HR part of it, or they want to be the face of the practice in the community. I like to encourage owners to pick one thing that you want to do all the time, and then figure out how to make your business work around that thing. So you get to do just what you want, just as much as you want, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were solo, didn't hire on another dentist.
No.
You actually compressed the practice and put yourself in your zone of genius and let the business run itself. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about some of the first changes when you realize, and by the way, if you are a service provider who wants to work less hours and stay in your zone of genius, this is going to be the place where it's probably going to be most relevant, whether or not you hold a license like a dentist or a physician or an attorney or an accountant or something like that, because you were the only licensed dentist. So there were certain things in your scope of work that nobody else in your business could do.
In fact, when we started, the first thing my team said is, okay, if you don't need your license or a handpiece to do, you're not allowed to do it. It was like, you can only do those things that the license says you can do. Everything else, we have to find somebody who's better at it than you to do. So the first thing that we started with was to create systems. If you want to scale things down and make it go smoother and faster, you need robust systems. Let's put it like that. So we took everything we do and turned it into a system. I think the one for your listeners that would be most impactful is to think of it's what I call a client journey, from the very first phone call, when someone calls your office looking, exploring, shopping, whatever you want to call it. What happens on that phone call? And then what's next? Is there an intake that happens? Is there a plan of attack or a care plan that's put together. And then is there service delivery? And then, you know what I mean? So it's every step along the way. What happens and how can, like, who's responsible? Who's responsible for the intake call? Where does the information go? How do they communicate that to other people in the practice, which doesn't include the dentist? And where do you store that information so that anybody who needs it can access it without constantly asking questions? Where's this? How do I do this? So the systems really are the first big step to getting your life back, to deciding what am I absolutely required to do and what can I teach someone or train someone to do possibly even better than I did before.
So let me ask you, when your team came to you and said, you're only doing what's in your license, we're going to do everything else. What percentage of your time do you feel you were working in the practice sort of outside your license? How many
Yep.
out?
Well, so many hours because think about it. In the beginning, when you start your practice, you wear 12 different hats. You are HR, you are the payroll provider, you're the bookkeeper, you empty the trash, you make the coffee, all those things that you do. And so, one at a time, we took those hats off and said, who else should be doing this? And in that process, I call it the Henry Ford approach. I don't know if you remember Henry Ford. I'm in Michigan, so he's a big deal around here. Um, Henry Ford never even graduated from high school, and yet he managed to build this empire. He was good at mechanical things. That was it. That's his zone of genius. And he surrounded himself with experts in all the different areas: sales, marketing, personnel, all those things that he was not good at. He just put experts in there. And when I say that to clients, sometimes the word expert is scary. It sounds expensive. Um, so now I call them champions. If you can surround yourself with champions who are just better at doing a thing than you are. And sometimes, if you think about it, you look at your social media, your champion, your expert could be a teenager. It doesn't have to be someone expensive that you go and hire. It could be somebody who's just naturally better at it. So I encourage people to look at your team. Don't feel like you have to go and hire outside people to come in and bail you out. A lot of times it's just giving authority and power to people that you have properly trained to follow your systems. So it all kind of comes back to, do you have the right kind of systems set up?
So inside your team, did you find that there were people that were better fit in a different role when you collapsed, or I don't know if we want to
Yes.
call it
Right.
compressing, right? I don't want to
Right.
call it collapse. It didn't collapse. You could
Right.
press the time. My
Hmm.
my. So did you find inside your own team already working with you, knowing you in the culture
Hmm.
fit, that they were better suited for other roles and tasks and responsibilities?
Yes.
As yes, okay.
Absolutely. And
So
one of the things that we did was have people, we call it an ABC skill set.
okay.
You just take a piece of paper, divide it into three columns, A, B, and C. A are things you love to do, like you could do it all day long. B are things I can do it, I'm okay at it, doesn't really light me up inside. And C's are the things I hate doing. I don't want to do it. I have to do it as part of my job, but I don't want to do it. So we had everyone fill those out. And then we did our best to get rid of everyone's C's that they didn't want to do, they weren't good at. And we tried to give them a position, a job that focused strictly on their A's, what they were really good at. And yes, it meant some of our people had to go down to part time so that they could just focus on what they were doing. We had to bring on some more people who had what used to be my C's. I needed somebody who loved to do that stuff, was better than I was at it. We had to hire a bookkeeper, we had to get an HR person. So, yes, but thankfully now the world is full of fractional people. So it doesn't have to be a full time employee that drags your margins down. Um, so, yes, we did have to decide, where can we find someone and build them up, help them grow into a position that they can handle better than I did when I was the doc, plus all those jobs.
So let me ask you, because this is a huge perspective shift. I think that a lot of people are hired under task roles and responsibilities, and we build these generally, it's like,
Mhm,
oh, you work, let's say you're the insurance person, you're filing
mhm.
the insurance and things like that. And so we would hire somebody to do that plus all these other things. But it sounds like actually your job descriptions, roles, responsibilities became a little more bespoke to your practice. Maybe in another practice, these people would not be under the same job title. I want to
Yes,
kind of make
so
it very clear that this ABC
mhm.
process probably created roles and responsibilities that are not traditionally seen in a dental practice.
So we ended up with an org chart that was based on responsibilities, not people,
Okay.
because, well, for example, here we discovered, we had an office manager who in that position had been the person that did financial arrangements.
Mm.
And she was very uncomfortable asking people for money. And when we took her out of that little chunk and put her solely in managing team, managing schedules, and working on keeping the office running, and took that C set away from her, oh my gosh, she about hugged us. She was so happy to not have to do that. Now, that meant we had to find somebody who understands how to work with people who are in trouble financially. So, but there are people like that. It wasn't like, oh, I'm never going to find anyone and I'm going to have to do it myself. There are people who love to do that, who love to make life work for others, you know? And that was such a relief when we gave her permission to let go of that part of her previous job description. And we gave her different things that matched her gifts and graces to a much better extent.
I love this. And anybody listening out there, if you have a team and you're putting in new systems, this ABC is phenomenal. What a great way to not only motivate team and keep them happy, and they'll be more efficient and they'll probably be
Yeah.
more effective in their right roles. And it's interesting when you did have to drop some people to part time so that they could only do the roles
Right.
that they were really good for. Was there resistance around there? Was it a conversation around there? What happened to those people specifically? Because I know that's a tough conversation to have
Mhm.
with people.
It is. So a lot of it depends on how you present this. And I started our conversation saying, I did this with my team. I didn't come up with the system all by myself. So I didn't walk in the door and say, I know what we're going to do from here on out.
Okay.
I walked in and said, how are we going to do this? We have different parameters. How are we as a team all together going to do this? And the fun part about the ABC skill set was the team was sitting there and they'd say to each other, I didn't even have to do this. They said to each other, I'll do that one off your C skill set if you do this one off of mine. And they were negotiating
Wow.
with each other. So we only had one person that we had to like squirrel away to part time because the rest of the team said, oh, I love doing that. Can I have that? And you can have this because I don't want to do that. I would never have figured that out without bringing the team in. Team has such great perspective and they see how a practice really runs because they're the ones making it work. We get off in our offices or in the operatory. I'm busy using my hands, thinking, doing all this stuff. I don't see the nuts and bolts every day of how things actually work. And it was wonderful to work together with my team instead of saying, okay, guys, this is what we're going to try and we'll see if it works. You know,
Amazing. All right.
very.
So you were able to go down to 2.5 days a week. And I just want to
Mhm.
reiterate. So it took you about a year to compress or
Well,
to get there of the
right,
5 days for the revenue to
right,
come down to the same level at 2.5 days.
right.
That's not a very long time when now you sustained that 2.5 days and grew the revenue.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so this leads us sort of into the next conversation. As you were growing, did you just increase the systems or did you just scale the system? Or was there something else you did when you realized, okay, now we're at capacity at 2.5 days,
Right.
revenue's back where it was, right? So it's like a lot of things was stop there. So what was the difference then?
So so other things happened at the same time. So, yes, you need systems for everyone to work with, and you need the right team and you need to care for that team. I can't tell you how important it is to have some kind of a I know companies talk about, having performance reviews. I hate that word. I call them growth conferences, and it's a way to, yes, grow your team, turn them into better humans, have them develop. So that's professional development and personal development. Um, but it also gives them a reason to stay with you because they can see, oh, look, she's interested in how I'm doing right now. My life situation is important to her. Um, and in those performance reviews, I encourage owners to be sure to have some kind of a ranking system in it. So we had a very simple one. On a scale from 1 to 5, how are you, Sally, doing on the idea of showing up in the office ready to go on time? Sally, you're only at a 3. So now Sally knows out of 5, she's only coming in at a 3. And then we sit down and we say, now, what can you do to get yourself closer to a 4 or a 5? And we document those steps that she agrees to do. And then we come back in however many weeks and say, okay, how are we doing? And you have a breadcrumb trail should you need to let someone go, but you also have accountability for your team. And that's a place where I find owners have a hard time having those difficult conversations. But if you've already made a commitment, if you already have some give and take that's happening, it makes those conversations much easier to do.
All right. So now the question of all the licensed professionals, compliance, and all of those regulatory things that happen in these regulated industries like dentistry, doctor's
Mhm.
offices, lawyers, accountants, and all the things.
Right.
Did you take some of that off your plate? Were you doing less compliance, more compliance? Did you bring someone in for that? I think that is a huge area of resistance for people letting go. And
Yes.
it's
Mhm.
because I own this, my name's on the door, or it doesn't matter what the brand is, my name's on the door, my
That's
name's
right.
on the license.
Mhm.
And I have to protect our regulatory and compliance stuff at all costs because if I lose my license or if we don't renew or if something happens.
Right.
So I know there's people out here now who's going, well, that would be great. I would love for my team, but I will never be able to get rid of certain pieces. So I'm curious how
Mhm.
you dealt with that.
So and it depends on whether you want to get rid of those pieces or not. Remember, we started with you get to decide this is the one
Right.
thing I'm going to do, or maybe the two things I'm going to do. But you don't have to do that compliance piece yourself. So this falls under what I call the culture of your practice. What are the core values of your business, your practice, and what do those look like in action? So core values have a very bad reputation because most docs, I gotta tell you, come up with 5 big words, they put them on a plaque, slap them up on the wall,
Right.
and never talk about them again. So what we did is we took our core values and we turned them into what I call core behaviors. This is what, like, if excellence, we always use these big ethereal words that are hard to, like, what in the world is that? Excellence, what does that look like? What behaviors would tell our patients and our clients that we were doing excellence for them, or efficiency, or um, any of the words that you use to describe your core values? What does that look like in action? Um, and my best story is a company I was working with. I think they had 6 core values, and they turned those core values into 30 different behaviors
Wow.
that their team and the owners could, be role modeling for their clients and for each other because it spoke to how do team members treat each other. And they started a competition. They had a little contest, and the idea was for team members to catch each other living out these core behaviors. and they had a contest, and they would bring it up at team meetings, and team meetings is another thing you need to have if you're gonna step back and not be part of everything. Um, but they would bring it in so that people started watching, team members started watching each other, not with a bad intent, but with a good intent to catch each other living those core values, those core behaviors out in front of their clients, in front of their vendors, in front of each other. Um, and it really, because the problem that keeps us from stepping back is that our people aren't going to make decisions like I would. I know what's
Mhm.
right. I know how to read the law about what I'm supposed to do. I know what HIPAA means, all those things. I'm the last word on that. But if you develop a culture so that it becomes second nature to your team members, they're not going to run to your door every day and say, well, what do you think about this? And how do I decide this? And what does this mean? You've built into them a thought process like yours about what you want the environment in your practice to be like. How do you want your precious clients treated? What does white glove treatment mean to you? This is how you explain and really embed it into your team members so that you have less stress about what are they doing when I'm not there.
Right. Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, the 2.5 days that you were in the office practicing, were you closed the other 2.5 days, or were you taking
We
appointments?
it kind of
How did
it wasn't a immediate. We couldn't shut down to 2.5 days immediately. It was a gradual thing, but it had to happen pretty quickly. Um, it was just a measure of how fast can we serve patients in our
Right.
situation. But remember, so much of what keeps an owner busy has nothing to do with service delivery. We think it's all about being an attorney, being a dentist, being a veterinarian, but really there's so much else that happens in your practice has nothing to do with billable hours. Um, and those are the things that we got rid of first. All the extra outside. I was shocked when I saw how much time I spent doing all these things and no drill in my hand, no conversation, no reading x-rays, nothing about being a dentist. It was just running the business, overseeing the people, you know? Um, that was the first shocker for me was I had no idea I spent so much time doing these other things.
Yeah. I mean, just what comes to mind for me would be like the ordering, right? So all of that
Yes.
orderings, people don't want to let that go necessarily because there's cash involved, right? So it's
Mhm.
like, what do you,
Right. So what you have to do
yeah.
It's it's a lot about think of it like delegating, you know?
Mhm.
If I give this project to you, say ordering, here are the parameters. You have to paint a really vivid picture. You can order only so much, like we're doing a just in time type thing. So I only want so much inventory on the shelves and I only want to spend so much in a month. And your final goal at the end is this much margin. So you've painted it's not just like keep us in supplies, it's order every month, look at the image. It's very particular. So when you start delegating things like that, you just have to describe it more carefully than you would first think about, you know?
Right. Okay, so let's talk about some of these systems that maybe we know need built, but at the level of detail that you built them so that you
Mhm.
could legitimately hand the keys over and be like, don't drill anybody. I'll be back on Tuesday.
Yeah, right. So think about it. Do your team do you have a way you want your phone answered? So that if it like in our practice, if the phone rang more than twice, everybody better be jumping to get the phone. I don't care who you are, and you're going to know how to answer it exactly like I want it answered. And you depending on who's on the other end, you're going to know what questions because you understand our phone scripts or suggested questions
Right.
inside and out, So, yes. So I encourage people think about your accounts receivable,
Mhm.
you know? Are
It's a
do
big one.
you it's huge. I can't believe how much money is left hanging out there and we're losing interest, we're losing availability. There's so much. hanging out there because it's just a line on a balance sheet and no one's ever aged it. I'm amazed at how many practices don't age their accounts receivable because once you understand the problem people are having with their finances, you can come up with solutions to keep them from falling into those problems. But if you don't look at it, you can't have those conversations. So there's a little courage. And if the owner isn't the courageous one who's going to look and see how much does Mr. Smith owe me, somebody in the practice, that is somebody's A skill set, is to keep people from hitting 90 days on your accounts receivable. You have to find that person. Um, and there are places to go. You can talk to your CPA. Maybe somebody in his bookkeeping team loves to do that. But you got to find someone with that A skill set that you want because they're better at it than you are.
Sure. Sure. So these SOPs were very specific. So a lot of times we will see people have practice manuals or they'll have HR manuals or they'll have
Mhm.
employee handbooks and they'll have those things that give you the general and then
Right.
it gives you the culture, gives you those things. But what you're saying is the systems that you had to build were so specific with almost checklist like specificity.
Right.
And that is what enabled you to be able to walk away. So if somebody's listening out there now and they're like, "Well, we have these handbooks, everything is fine." You're saying, "No, no, no." It goes beyond
Right.
basically what maybe you've developed, especially the way that I see this is because you did the ABC and everybody sorta it was like a choose your own adventure in your job description.
Mhm.
So I bet everybody had to rewrite their job descriptions and their tasks and responsibilities. And I don't know that that's something that we actively practice on a regular basis inside our business. It's very easy to do that when you set up. Do it if
Right.
there's a particular
Mhm.
event, like we hired too many employees and now we have to update it because we have FMLA or whatever. But
Right.
other than that, I don't think that's an ongoing thing. So when you were kind of rushed into, okay, this isn't working, we need
Mhm.
to compress this down, you really had to get very granular. And it sounds like your team helped you do that.
And they did. And a lot of it, we set ourselves up to succeed in saying that we're going to try this for 6 weeks. And then we're all going to sit down. If it doesn't work, no one failed. It's not the end of the world. We're going to tweak it. So I'm not asking people to start over. I'm asking people to actually realize where are you in your systems and what can you do to tweak it to make it work better for your team and for yourself. So it's all about tweaking and being, boy, work with your team. It's so easy when you're working with them instead of, because a bunch of us that are older, when we learned about leadership, it was, I'm the leader because I know everything. I have knowledge. I have the license. I have the everything. So y'all just do what I tell you. So it's very top down. It's a very corporate model of I'll tell you what to do. And your performance reviews reflect how well you follow instructions.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you, today's young people are not interested in following instructions just because you said so. That they're not interested. They are looking for a place to plug in and use their problem solving skills, to use their creativity, which is a very scary thing in my dental office, because someone could die in my chair if you don't do things the right way. So I can't
Right.
turn a millennial loose and say, go for it. Just find a new way to do this. No. So it's back to what I said. When you paint a picture of what the end result has to be, you have to give them guardrails. You have to give them parameters and say, this is exactly what the end product has to be like. Go for it. Show me a way to get there faster, smoother, prettier, whatever, however you want to look at it. But it has to meet these criteria. So you really have to think about specifically what am I asking my team to do? You know, I am totally guilty of what I call a drive-by delegation. Like I'll take up a stack of charts and I'll set it on the end of my office manager's desk as I'm walking out of her office and say, "Would you handle these?" And I'm off, Those are horrible instructors. I call those drive-bys, you know? But that's what we do. We think they know sort of what we want. So we say, "Here, will you handle this?" And we haven't told them how we don't there's so many things we have not explained or told them what our expectation is.
Right.
They should just know because they know us and how we do things. So it does require that you get very granular, as you said. But I encourage people, it doesn't mean you have to write a book. Don't ever think that I want you to write step by step how to do everything. My team loved videos. So we did a lot of videos so that if you forgot how to do something in our software, you could punch a link and there's the video. Watch the video. You don't have to ask me how to do it. You don't have to bother the office manager. You just do it yourself. That worked so well. So I'm not asking for a play by play written out because by the time you write it, it's going to change, you know? It does. It just, things change very quickly. So you want it to be adaptable, flexible. And I encourage owners to have your team write or make the videos and you just check them, just monitor them. It'll save you a whole lot of time because I'm not trying to give owners more work to do. I want you to be able to step back, let your team use their brains, use their creativity, come up with solutions. It's much easier to edit or monitor or check it than it is to try and create it all yourself and hand it to your team. Does that make sense?
Right. Absolutely. So yeah, Loom videos are great. There's a lot of free
Yes.
software assets that you can do to do that. What other technology did you either add or change or decide wasn't working for you when you went ahead and compressed down? Based on I guess when you remove
Right.
people's C's, I'm assuming that some people are using software that maybe isn't a good fit anymore because you're removing
So
things.
so we did have to we just a lot of communication, and communication is actually one of the 5 areas that we had to work on. Because when you start scrunching things down, communication becomes ever more important, especially when the doc is not around. So we came up with different modes of communication because we have a huge HIPAA compliance piece. So I'm gonna say texting, but it's not normal texting. So if you wanna talk if you wanna communicate between two team members, you can text in a different kind of texting. If you want to communicate with a patient, you can only communicate with them over the phone or in an email. We don't text patient. We These are just things we decided so that I what I didn't want was and then there's another way, a third way, like, if you wanna talk to the doc, you can text me on this app because it goes with our software. But I don't want is to get an email and a text and through the software about the same problem. So
Right.
so we agreed on how are we gonna communicate for those 3 groups. Um, Dentistry has this great idea. Every morning, we have what I call a standing team huddle. It takes 10, maybe 15 minutes. We go over the schedule for the day. Do we have all the lab work? Everybody's happy. Are there any patients coming in who have special needs? Is there anywhere where we need more hands on deck to help? And then we look at the next day. We look at is that schedule filled? Where are the holes that we could possibly fill with people who are here today who could stay and do something extra, fill up those holes in the schedule? That whole thing takes maybe 10 minutes in the morning. Such great communication. So everyone knows where there might be a hiccup as far as a problem patient or someone who needs extra care. We have a lot of apprehensive people in our office, and sometimes they just need a little gentle hand holding. But if we know that ahead of time, then someone can be right there ready to go. So it's not awkward. It makes it smoother and easier for our patients. So a lot of that communication happens in that morning, and we all stand up because we want it to go fast. It goes faster if you're not as comfortable, you know? But that's a great just to look at your day, your 2 days, or your week and say, "Are we ready? Do we have everything we need? Got all the supplies, all the people? Do we have the finances all figured out? Are we ready to go?" That's a lot of organization happens in that little communication, 10 minutes, not a big deal.
Amazing. All right. So you help other businesses, professional businesses, dentistry, and all things. Can you tell everyone where they can find you and learn about your additional practice, not just to get their teeth done, right? So
Sure.
very
So
market
so we put together, just for your listeners, we put together kind of a checklist that talks about the things we've spoke about today. So if they go to workfewerhours.com, they can download a PDF that kind of goes over the things we talked about today. And I'm on LinkedIn, and our website is shorelinestrategies.com. But I think the easiest way for them to step into our world would be this PDF that gives them a great place to start if you're thinking about how do I get organized so that I'm not there all these hours.
I love it. Well, thank you. That is very generous. And we will put all of the links down in the show notes and then also in the video description.
Good.
So if you find us on the day it launches or even 2 years later, you can find Ruth and all of her tips and strategies. And if you are a professional, licensed um, dentist, doctor, vet, attorney, accountants, all the things where we have these sort of additional regulatory steps that can make, business management challenging because of the roles and the bright line separations.
Right.
I would encourage you to reach out and connect with Ruth too, and I'm sure she can support you as well.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate this conversation, and I think this can be very helpful for a lot of people who maybe are looking for somebody who can assist with these types of business management things that are specific to particular industries.
Right. Right. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. And I love the information you provide for your listeners. A great podcast. I enjoyed being here. Thanks.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you. All right. We'll talk to y'all next time on the next episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Mastery Podcast. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to dawnkennedy.com, and you can now check us out on YouTube as well as, of course, any of your favorite platforms that host podcasts. Take care.